hello, welcome.
What a lovely sunny day.
It is gorgeous, it is gorgeous. And hello, anybody and everybody who is watching this live or afterwards. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Simona Hamblet and I am a leadership and lifestyle coach for professionals. And I have with me today Laura Coleman, founder of Be Modern Meditation, ninja of meditation, to make it a little bit easier for all of us to enjoy it. Welcome, Laura.
Oh, it's great to be here. It's absolutely my favourite thing to do. It's to help people to access something that actually can feel like it's really complicated, and it really doesn't have to be. And it can be really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody has any questions for Laura, please pop them into the comments, and then towards the end, after the taster of meditation, we will I won't, but Laura will answer your questions because she is the expert. So please do ask any questions that you may have during this, or indeed after. If you're watching this afterwards, pop them in, and I know that Laura will be more than happy to answer them. She says, hopefully.
Yeah, I promise I will.
Brilliant. Okay. So Laura, I know that you shared an experience that you had that you just recall that moment, and I know that meditation helped you with that. Is that a good place to start your story, or is there somewhere else that would be useful?
No, I think that's a great place to start. I think we all have at some point in our lives a moment, and for me that moment was around 7 years ago now, and I sat down, I wrote in my journal, and at the time I wasn't much of a journal writer, and I wrote the words, "I am nothing." And it was a real jolt to my system. It was like, where did that come from? And I suppose it was like a call to action from, whether that's my future self or my previous self, because I had gone from being, the real corporate person, had a corporate career, and then I had 2 children really close together. Wasn't the plan. And then we moved, when I was due to be going back to work after my second child, we moved to Australia, to Melbourne, which was a fantastic opportunity with my husband. But it meant that I was staying at home with the children. And in that process, I just found I'd lost myself. And what was interesting at that time was that on the outside, even as I wrote those words, I was actually doing lots of things. I was project managing our house build. I was volunteering at charity. I was really active in the kids' lives and in their schools. And, anyone who knew me would have thought I was happy and, really content in my life. And I think that's maybe the case for a lot of us, actually, that the times when we're struggling, we don't necessarily look like we are. And for me, writing those words, it was like that, the trigger for where I need to, either it's true and that's awful, or it's not true, and how awful is it that I think that about myself. So, and I stumbled across meditation at that time. I think often that sort of happens, that you come across the exact thing you need when you realize that you need to start looking for it. And it became like the scaffolding out of that place. It wasn't the magic bullet that suddenly I started meditating and my whole life was fixed, but it allowed me to access something really differently and created space for me to experience things from a very different place. So I then went on to study psychology and mindfulness and lots of different things, because I became really passionate about wanting to help other people who were in that stuck place for whatever reason they were there. But I kept looping back to meditation being the fundamental piece of the puzzle for me. And so when I moved back to the UK in 2018, and I looked to create a platform to be able to do that work, I realized that meditation was going to be that central foundation. So that's really how Be Modern Meditation evolved. So it was about using meditation to transform your life. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm now, and making it accessible so that it actually works in your busy life is one of the key things.
Okay. And I think there's going to be so many people that are listening to this that are going to resonate with that. Whether it's I am nothing, whether it's something else, but that's something, whatever that word has or sentence has been.
It's being stuck, I think, isn't it? That sense of, it's almost like there's that kind of whispering of, is this it? That we live these really busy lives, and we create this, maybe we create a career, and we don't know, we sort of think, well, actually, is this making me happy? Is this really it's just a sort of a sense of, and I think probably right now with everybody being at home in lockdown, there's kind of a couple of things I've noticed is that with people who I'm working with and helping and supporting is that there's anxiety has been a big factor, that kind of hypervigilance in our nervous system, but also a sense of, what do I really want? This forced pause has allowed people to, and force people to, sort of all the distractions that we use to avoid some of these things. Suddenly we don't have that distraction anymore, and it's kind of creates space for us to think, what do I want?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that I do, and I'm sure that people listening want to understand how meditation has helped you answer the question of, not answer the question of is this it, but how you moved forward from that and how meditation helped you with that. Because meditation is more than, a sense of relaxing, which a lot of people associate it with, to say that, of course, it does help with that. Before we move into that, let's just clear some of the myths that might be in people's minds. So let's clear those out of the way so that we can move forward with that discussion. So I know that I've got a few, but let's hear from the professional. What are the myths that you tackle?
Most common. Well, probably one of the biggest ones is I can't do it. I'm no good at it, because when I close my eyes, I just start thinking, and there's just no way I can clear my mind. My mind is just a thinking machine. There's just no way. And that's probably one of the fundamental barriers, because actually when you first start to meditate and you're expecting, what we want is that calm Zen stillness, and we think we've got this empty mind, but actually it really, what we first notice is how noisy it is, that actually we realize how much our mind is thinking. And that's probably the first step, is knowing that it's okay if you think in meditation. The only thing you have to do is notice, and once you notice, you come back to whatever practice you're doing. So the practice that we'll do today will just be a very simple focused attention practice, where we basically just doing that. We're just choosing where to place our attention. So mindfully deciding, this is what I'm going to pay attention to. And then we get distracted, we just notice, and we come back without judging it, without saying, oh, see, I'm rubbish at meditation. Oh God, I can't even stop thinking for a few seconds. And just letting go of the need for it to feel a certain way. And often I take people through the science of, what exactly is it doing? Because even though it doesn't always feel relaxing to hear the noise that's going on in your mind, you are actually triggering the relaxation response in your body. And that has a massive impact on how your body processes stress, and ultimately the impact of that stress on your body and your mental health. So that's the biggie number one.
And I can really relate to that. And also the thing is that sometimes when I meditate, I have this beautiful space up there, and I almost feel like I should open my eyes and be floating a few inches off the ground. It's just was disappointing when I'm still there. But then on other days, I'll go into that space, go into meditation. I'm like, whoa, no 2 days are the same, and it's not even always like the stressful days or whatever. Just for something, I'll go in there and I feel like I'm in a busy airport or train station or something. So no 2 days are the same.
Yeah, it's kind of like getting off the tube, that you get off the tube somewhere, and you don't know if it's going to be a busy platform. You're going to be jostled around by all the other passengers, and you try and stand still on a train platform when there's loads of other people, and you get just pushed around, and it's like, whoa. And then other days you get off and it's clear and you can just walk straight out. And even now, as somebody who's meditated for a long time and done a lot of hours of meditation, that's still my experience. And knowing that that's actually okay and it's part of the practice is really, for a lot of people, is quite liberating. It's like, actually, if I know that, I liken it to going to the gym. When you go to the gym, and well, there's lots of ways it's similar to going to the gym, actually, because the way that we're training our brain is like the way we're training our muscles, in that we have to do it regularly. But you go to the gym, and some of the workouts that feel the worst, that you think, oh my God, I'm literally going to die, they are the ones that are doing the best muscle building. So often, if our mind is getting distracted by thoughts, it's releasing stress from our nervous system. And every time I notice and I come back, I'm training that capacity to do that. to be aware of what's going on in my mind. And that's the ripple that starts to happen into your life, is that it's not just when I close my eyes to meditate, I can find my way sometimes to the stillness that's always there. It's actually that I'm training my mind that I can choose where to put my attention, and that when I get hijacked by thoughts or sensations or emotions, I have a choice, and that they're not me, they're separate to me. And that really changes so much. It sounds really tiny, that shift, but it's huge in terms of how you experience things.
And it's interesting because with meditation, we have a much higher expectation of I should enjoy it every time. I should always go into the flow. And yet, if we think about most things, like we'll have days at work where we feel like it's all going to plan, or we'll go and do some exercise even when we don't feel like it. And sometimes, even when we don't feel like it, we'll come out going, oh my God, I enjoyed that the most. And sometimes we don't. Sometimes we'll go in and it will still be a bit of a slog. You know, and we won't come out necessarily buzzing. We might feel a bit proud that we did it, but quite often we somehow expect something different of our mind than
Yeah,
other things.
that's very true.
And that giving ourselves permission, like you say, letting go and go, actually, that, you know, that is the myth of this is no different. It's just the same, but it's just a different thing that we're focusing on.
Yeah, there's a Deepak Chopra quote that I love, which says, the best meditation practice is the one you actually do. And it's like, actually all you have to do is show up, and you're doing it. And I think that, again, yeah, for me, especially because I've always been a real, you know, type A, like do things well, achieve, you know, and so, you know, I probably wouldn't naturally have looked like somebody who's going to be a meditation teacher because of that drive. And I suppose I believed that if I meditated, I'd somehow lose that. You know, I'd become somebody who didn't have drive or ambition or focus, or, you know, that I'd be kind of like, yeah, I love everyone, you know. Actually, it's done the opposite. It's actually allowed me to really unlock a sense of purpose and focus, and it's like a superpower, because, you know, when I'm in a situation, I think it was like, you know, that film The Matrix, where he has the bullet coming towards him and he kind of, you know, can sort of just in slow motion move. It gives you that capacity, because as you build that ability to see things come up in meditation and not react, you activate a part of your brain that allows you to respond. And so you suddenly create time in the moment, where instead of reacting from that emotional driven part of the brain, you're using that kind of brain CEO. You know, you're able to, it's literally like time slows down and you can think, that's interesting, I've been quite triggered by that. Whether that's somebody giving you a piece of work, or somebody talking to you badly, or your children, or whatever it is, you can notice the trigger, and there's just a moment where you get to choose, what do I do with that? So it's quite powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and we get triggered all the time. An email pinging, just like the noise, all the time, and it allows us to create some space, as you say. Okay, so one of the myths is, you know, that we shouldn't be thinking during meditation. Any others that you think would be really useful for people to be aware of?
Yeah, well, I think another big one that I've come across is like, it's almost a sense of it's not really for me, it's for other people. It's a bit out there. It's a bit, I'm not really spiritual, you know, or I like spiritual stuff, but I'm not really sure. And actually, I think what's great is that, just like, you know, again, to hark back to exercise, but you know, if you think of the word meditation as like the word exercise, you wouldn't just go, well, I don't like running, so therefore I don't like exercise. You know, you go, I just need to find the shape and style that suits me, and to experiment, and to say, well, that you know, because it's like a spectrum, you know, that on the one end you've got, you know, living in the Himalayas in a mountaintop, and on the other end of the spectrum you've got things like mindfulness-based stress reduction programs, which are quite almost like, in a way, medicalized, in the sense that there's quite specific protocols and it's very secular. So it's about finding where you are on that. And for me, I kind of try to sit in the middle and sort of just pull elements of both ends, so that you can actually have a practice that really suits your life. And certainly with my one-to-one clients, that's definitely the way I approach it. That it's very much, I've got my signature program, which is about taking you on that journey from, you know, wherever you are, but ultimately it's tailoring it to you, so that it works for your life right now, because it's not realistic to think you're just going to suddenly turn into a Zen monk. If that's not your life, it's about how can I make it work for my life as it is. So I'd say that's probably a big one, is that it won't work for me in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many, well, we have shoulds around anything, and you know, I've noticed in the past some of the shoulds either from me or from other people have been, you know, I should be doing it for a certain period of time, or I should do it with my eyes shut, or I should do it with my legs crossed, or you know, I should.
But yeah, if I'm not doing it for, you know, half an hour a day, then I've failed, you know. Or, and there are certain types of meditation that, you know, like for example, transcendental meditation or Vedic meditation, which was what I originally trained in. You know, that has very strict. It's like 2 lots of 20 minutes a day, and that's what you have to do. And it is really effective. And you know, there's lots of research around how it's effective, but actually, I think if you did any meditation for that length of time a day, if you were dedicated to it, you would get those results. But actually, there's also really clear research that 1 minute a day counts, 5 minutes a day counts. You know, you really can. In fact, there's research coming out of the University of California right now saying that actually, maybe it's many small moments, many times, could be as effective. So just breaking contact with the doing and just turning inwards briefly throughout your day multiple times can accumulate and create the same impact as doing a longer sit. So it's about having the flexibility and adaptability, and almost like a toolkit to draw from, so that you can really create change in a sustainable way. Because I think that's another problem or challenge people have with meditation, is they go really gung-ho, they're like, I'm going to meditate every day, and they feel the difference, and this is brilliant, and then maybe something happens and they can't do it for a couple of days, and then suddenly they haven't done it for a week, and suddenly they're not doing it anymore, and it's all or nothing. And being able to see that it can flex based on what's happening in your life can really make it more accessible, I think.
Yeah. And that's true for, I think, for any practice of anything or any habit of anything. And you know, it's that, you know, if we will miss one day with most things. If we can then do even 1 minute of anything, whether it's 1 minute of meditation, 1 minute of exercise, anything that is a habit that you want to keep the second day, because once you don't do it 2 days in a row, and that's it. So you know, so it is that giving ourselves permission to, it's like, it would be great if tomorrow I meditated for 20 minutes, for example, if people are going for longer things. But actually, if I only do 1 minute, I give myself full permission to do that 1 minute. Because sometimes if we overset it, it becomes too hard, and it's that finding the right one for you for that day sometimes.
Yeah. I think the other thing that can happen as well on that, you know, is that we kind of, meditation can be this sort of solitary, isolated thing, that it's kind of nobody else knows that you would do it. Like, it's almost like this guilty secret people have, you know.
I was going to say,
kind of,
I was going to
you
say
know,
that it is
people, yeah, like if somebody walked in the room, you'd be like, oh, I'm not doing anything. And actually sort of normalizing it to be like, actually, I'm just meditating right now, I'll be with you in a minute, you know. It's because, you know, and I was reflecting on this recently, that how much things have changed in sort of, you know, corporate culture, for example, around exercise, that, you know, people would come in and go, oh, I did a workout before work, or, oh yeah, I'm going out at lunchtime to go and do some exercise. And it's like, you know, it's part of life. Whereas, you know, I've got clients who, like, they go to the toilet to meditate in secret, you know. And it's sort of like, and it's interesting because I worked with an architect firm and I did a few sessions for them, and it was amazing how when they'd all kind of experienced it, and it's become now that when they can as a team, they meditate together. And it's now not uncommon for people in the team to say, I'm just going to go into the meeting room and just do a quick meditation. And it's like, it's just a normalized thing of, you're part of that cultural setting that they've created, that they can actually make it something. And they know that if they do that before a really big client meeting, they're sharper, they're more focused, they have the chance to really listen and connect to the client much more deeply, because it does, you know, that responsiveness expands to how you connect to other people and how well you can listen and be really present, rather than, you know what, we're often playing out how do I want this meeting to go, what is it that I'm trying to get across, what do I want to sell to them, or, you know, all of that stuff. You can clear that away, and you have the confidence that you're going to be able to draw on what you need when you need it, because you've got space in the moment to find your ideas and to relax. We all know that stress response chokes our ability to be effective. So it's almost like gives you that, again, it's a superpower of being able to be more effective.
And it also gives you, for my experience, is it also gives you that time to let go of whatever's just come with you. Because if you've just come out, it's fine if you've just come out of something that's made you feel really buoyant, feeling really great. But if you've just come out of something that has made you feel grumpy or irritated, or I've got to get back to that thing, you carry that into the next meeting. You're thinking about that thing, or you're carrying that mood into that next meeting. And I'm sure
all the self-criticism as well.
Oh, absolutely, and I'm sure we've all at some point taken something out on somebody else that wasn't for them. So it just it is a corporate, it is a corporate tool, that it isn't being used. It's a personal tool, but it is also a corporate tool that isn't being used. Or, as you say, if it is being used, and one of the things I'm very aware of it is, I don't want to, I don't tell people about that. It's a bit woo-woo. It's a bit spiritual, and I'm not, I don't want to be.
I don't want them to think that I'm not professional because I do this weird meditation thing. It's, and I think we've come a long way. And I think that I think one of the things I hear from people more now is actually less of, I don't want people to know I do this, and more like, I wish I could do this. I know this is something that would work, be good for me. And they sort of believe, it's almost like that belief of like, well, it will work for everyone else, but it won't work for me.
Yeah.
And actually, in reality, it does work for, like exercise, like works for anyone. And so it's genuine. When I do corporate workshops, for example, what's interesting is that you tend to have a room of people who maybe some of them are kind of quite up for being there, and some of them are not. And seeing that shift as especially when you go through the science, because it's quite compelling when you see like what's it actually doing in terms of stress and things like that. Seeing people go, oh, is that it? And then you sort of share this simple practice, and it's like, oh, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. I can't, the meditating I can't do, but I can do that. And so that's what we need, is to get that message out, that there's ways to make it just simple, and it's just like anything else. It's just normalizing it.
So Carmen, I'd like to hear your story and how it helped you, and then perhaps we'll move into how we can make it simple. So what was your story, and how has meditation helped you personally?
So I mean, when I started meditating, as I said, at the time I was at home with the children, and one of the things that really quickly happened was that my reactivity, and you talked about taking your mood out on people, that overwhelm feeling, it would burst out, and I would be, suddenly find myself really yelling at my children, or just not being the mum I wanted to be, and the partner I wanted to be, or person I wanted to be. And very quickly I remember my daughter saying to me, she said, "Oh, Mummy, I like it now because you don't shout at me all the time." And it was just like, oh, it was like sort of like a stab in the heart of like, oh my God, that was her impression. And that, because even when I did still have that reaction, because at the end of the day, when you've asked them 5,000 times to put their shoes on and they're still not ready, sometimes you're human, you go, for God's sake. But in that moment, even when I was reacting in a way I didn't want to be reacting, there's part of me able to observe it, and to suddenly be able to see the look on her face, what it did to her body language, how it made her feel. That whilst that was painful to witness what I was doing, it allowed me to make some choices around, well, that's not how I want to be, and that's not how I'm going to behave. And it sort of happened on its own, that my reactivity, it just evaporated. And then because my reactivity, it's almost like we create our environment, don't we? And actually a lot of the things that we think of our problems are caused by the way we've responded to the original challenge. So it really unlocked for me being able to choose responses more, and then from there starting to get to know, well, what's meaningful to me, what do I want? And that's why I then did go on to study psychology, and some of those other things. I kind of was able to sort of follow the breadcrumbs, if you like, of what's calling to me. And I think we all have that sort of inner but that inner sense, if we really listen, and meditation allows you to listen, of what's really going to drive us, what we really hear, what's really going to make us feel like we're living our best life. And whilst we're doing that, enjoying every moment of this life, being able to notice. And the clients say to me things like, I remember I had a guy who he travels to London on the train every day, and so he started to meditate on the train after, as we were working together. And he messaged me one day and he said, I've listened to the same Bruce Springsteen album, no judgment, every day. I listened to it and he said, but today, as I was getting off the train, it was like I really heard it. And he just was like, and I stood on the platform, and I just was stood on the platform. And it was really powerful, because that sense of just being in your life, even as you start to imagine what your life could look like. And for me, that was a really powerful shift that just has unlocked me being able to create what I have now. I've just followed that trail that was kind of created for me by just listening.
Okay. And you mentioned, you mentioned your journey with that, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. And how that's kind of, it allowed for you to react less, and to show up how you wanted to show up, well, to show up as you,
Yeah.
to you. And you mentioned, obviously, we know scientifically that it reduces stress, it calms our nervous systems down, it helps us in those ways. Are there any other ways that meditation helps?
Yeah, well, there's I mean, from a physical perspective, there's lots of things that it does around, it reduces your risk of heart attack and stroke. It actually, even right down at a cellular level, it reduces, it actually sort of it increases your longevity, and there's a whole lot of epigenetic science around that. But so from a physical perspective, you have fewer coughs and colds, your immune system works better, your digestion works better, and as a result, your emotional regulation is better. So there's a whole host of physical benefits, but it also helps with things like anxiety and depression. And actually, it's been shown to be as effective as medication for those conditions. Now, I think that there is a definite place for medication, because I think sometimes, particularly if you've got a lot of load and you are in a really, you're really struggling with those things, sometimes you need medication to help you to be able to access the power of something like meditation. But to know that there's something that you can say, for example, if you are having to medicate for those things, that knowing that you can learn skills that will mean you can transition away from having to rely on that and actually learn ways to experience things differently, that's really powerful, because that change with how you experience your thoughts is probably one of the most fundamental pieces of it, that your thoughts have less power over you, and you start to see the patterns of the stories you tell yourself, subconsciously, about how the world works, about who you are, about what you're capable of. When you start unhooking from that, you unlock your limitless potential. And it's really hard to understate how powerful that is in your life, and being guided to do that so that you can start to just build something that's meaningful. It's life-changing.
And it might feel, depending on where somebody is, it might feel more accessible than exercise, because we know that exercise helps us, but sometimes our energy levels, or people's energy levels can be really low, and although we know, or they know that, or being told that exercise helps, that might feel inaccessible. But a minute or two of meditation might feel slightly more accessible to build up those energy levels.
Yeah, because actually 20 minutes of meditation, for example, is like the equivalent of 4 hours deep sleep. So it can be really powerful way to boost your energy, especially when you get that mid-afternoon slump that we end up reaching for the chocolate bar, reaching for the caffeine. Actually, a quick meditation. Now, for me, for example, when I'm doing a long journey, I actually stop off and I meditate in the car for 5 minutes, pull over safely, obviously, and that just gets rid of that drowsiness. And you're right that it's like a lot of things, that these things snowball. So often people will come to me with, maybe they're having challenges with their mental health, or with feeling like stress is really impacting them. Maybe they're close to burnout, they just know they need to do something, And as we start working together, it, like it did for me, it's the scaffolding. So it's not the only thing that you do, but it unlocks you being able to maybe like re-examine what is it that gets in the way of me exercising. You know, what, like for example, when they say our habit is we reach for our phone, or we're scrolling, or we reach for food in the cupboard. When I'm more present in my life as a byproduct of meditation, because it happens on its own, I start to notice, hang on, I'm reaching for a bag of crisps. Why am I doing that? Now, I might not straight away stop reaching for the bag of crisps, but as soon as you start noticing more, you can then start to be more conscious. And when you're more conscious, that's just a much more positive way to start, you know, it escalating the ripples of that to start spreading into all the nooks and crannies of your life.
Yeah. So how do we make it simple? Ninja meditation lady, how do we make it simple?
Well, the first thing is release it, as we've talked about a little bit already, is release the need to do anything special. So as nice as it is to create a lovely meditation zone that you go and sit on a special cushion and you light a candle and you do all those rituals, they are brilliant if you've got time. But do you know what? Sit on a park bench, sit on a train, sit in your kitchen, you know, just sit in a normal posture, and you can just start. And that in itself, start where you are, is quite empowering. I think it's like there is no prerequisites. There's no, you don't have to go and buy any kit. You don't, I can meditate when, it's right now, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Even if you've got a busy household and you've got children. When I first started meditating, I had young children around, and now they're a bit older. And you know what? Quite quickly, they got used to, oh, mum's meditating. And so, you know, come out of the closet, just say, I'm just taking some time. This is something I'm experiencing, and giving yourself permission to be out and proud about your meditation. You know, can be really helpful as well. And then the technique that I'll guide you through in a minute is just a really simple practice. It's 5 minutes. And if anybody wants the download of that, then they can contact me and ask, or they can go to our website and get a download of it, so they can listen to me guiding it. And there's also a free app called Insight Timer, which my meditations are on, so they can go to that to listen there. If they want just that simple 5 minute or 10 minute, and they can build. And I do, you know, there's lots of ways to start, and it's just start really small and take those baby steps and just feel into it and take the pressure off, and you'll be amazed at how easy it can be.
Absolutely. And if anybody does have any, you know, questions, as I say, please do pop them in, and I will take a look in a moment. And then we'll answer them after the meditation. And one thing that you reminded me there, and it might well be in your 5 minute meditation, I can't recall, but it's like one of the things that people sometimes, and myself included, is like, originally it's like, oh, there's too much noise around me, and then it was like trying to pretend that there wasn't noise, and actually what it is kind of actually allowing for the fact there is noise, and even noticing it before, like, well, you noticing it first, or for me, noticing it first sometimes, and then coming back in, rather than kind of trying to push the noise away.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever arises when you're running. So if whether there's you can probably hear some noise where I am today. You know, whatever arises, whether it's a sound that distracts you, or a thought that distracts you, or a sensation in the body, it's just another thing to notice. And then you go, I'm going to come back. And quite quickly, and actually, you know, as you develop a meditation practice, there's other techniques that you know, I teach people around how you can actually incorporate whatever comes up, whatever sounds, into meditation. But essentially, exactly what you've said is that it doesn't have to be a silent place, and for most of us it's really hard to find a silent place, and it's just about going, that's just another thing to notice and come back from. So really, it's like extra muscle building. In fact, I never forget, I had one client, and her very first session, literally, because I've got building work happening at home, she literally closed her eyes for her very first meditation, and literally as she closed her eyes, unknown to me, the builders had a delivery of cement, and I'd said to them, I need total silence, I need you to be quiet, no drilling during this time. They're like, yes, fine. But of course they couldn't stop, they needed the cement because it had to pour it. So you hear, literally, she closed her eyes, it's like beep, 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 and then, like, you know, there's like banging and talking and in Polish, and but then when she opened her eyes in the meditation, I just carried on guiding her, and she went, you're right, you really can meditate anywhere. And actually she had been able to just notice the noise and just come back. And it's that and it maybe even noticing the feeling you have about the noise, noticing if you feel annoyed, like notice that reaction of, oh, I asked me to be quiet. I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to come back. And it really unlocks it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned it earlier, and it just comes to mind now before we go into the guided meditation, which I'm very much looking forward to. Is our thoughts? Our thoughts aren't us. And I think sometimes, we sometimes think that anything we think is real. And if we're thinking good thoughts, we're like, okay, I'm okay with that. But if we think something that we judge as bad, or we have a judgmental thought, or we think what we consider an unkind thought, we then link that to, I'm a good person, I'm a bad person. And also, the reason I mention that is sometimes when we meditate, we can get some really strange things come to mind, and they're not real. Like, our mind makes up really strange things at times. We've all had moments where we've kind of suddenly thought something and think, oh my goodness, why on earth did I think that? But it's just like the mind has just put together all sorts of weird things and has produced it as a thought, but it's not real, it's not you, it's just a thought, and it's what you do and actually act on that then kind of comes out as as what's going to happen next. But it's okay to have weird images or thoughts in meditation.
Definitely.
It's not you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because if you think about it, like, my nose is there to smell, my eyes are there to see, and my brain is there to think. And that classic, Descartes, I think, therefore I am. Actually, it's the other way around. It's I am, therefore I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, just as you say, being able to and again, the more you create that space for yourself around, it's almost like there's a being part of you, that part of you that's the same now as when you were 12. And then there's that doing part of you, which is your thinking, the action in the world, the way you're breathing, your body, that's all doing. And if we drop into that being space and we just observe the doing, that's how we can cultivate the space to say, it's just another thought. I'm having the thought that, rather than I am, even about ourselves, rather than, oh, I'm so useless, it's, oh, I'm having the thought that I'm useless. Yeah. And it just deactivates its power. And so, yeah, it's a really good point to note that, whatever comes up, it's just another thing to notice. And it's not some truth that's suddenly emerged and, oh no, like when I wrote those words, I am nothing, they were just words. They weren't real. They felt real. I felt shame and all those things, but it weren't real.
Before we move into the meditation, is there anything else that you would like to share or say before we have a meditation?
No, all I would say is the best way for meditation to work is for it to feel something pleasurable, not something to add to your to-do list that you should be doing. And I think you talked about shoulds earlier on. So, if you feel like you're making meditation be something like that, see if you can just let that go and just say, look, just be curious and try not to hold it too tight, and give yourself a break, and allow it to evolve.
Absolutely. So would you like to guide us?
Yeah, I shall take us over. So yeah, absolutely. So in terms of our posture, now I've already talked about the fact that we don't need any special postures or positions, but it's quite useful to have your lower back supported if that's comfortable for you. And we're trying to find that middle ground between active and relaxed. So for this particular type of meditation, which is like trying to train our capacity to pay attention, we don't want to go kind of so relaxed that we fall asleep. But we also don't want to hold it so rigidly and kind of, hold ourselves up and I'm just going to really pay attention now. So we want that middle space of almost somewhere between and tight. So just seeing if you can feel that space, that middle ground. And that's as technical as it gets with our posture, other than to say, you try not to rest your head back on anything, because often, especially if you are carrying a lot of stress in the system, you can find that when you close your eyes to meditate, you feel that tiredness because you switch on that relaxation response, even if you don't feel relaxed, and your body goes, oh, oof, and it feels the tiredness that's there. So if your head's resting back, you might actually fall asleep. If it's not resting, touching, even if you find yourself a little bit nodding dog, you won't actually fall asleep. You'll be in a state of falling asleep, and there's just a slight difference in terms of your consciousness. But that's all. That's as technical as we need to be. And we've already said, if thoughts come up, or sensations, or sounds, or any distractions, just notice that you've been distracted from, where I'm guiding you to focus, and just come back. There's no judgment. There's no right or wrong, or pass or fail. And so we'll just gently close down our eyes. And just taking a couple of deeper breaths, because we've been paying attention, and just noticing the body breathing. And we're going to take our attention inwards now and take our attention to the very tips of the fingers. So without moving the fingers, just letting your full focus rest there. And if there's things distracting you, just seeing if you can take your awareness just to those tips of the fingers. And after a moment, you might notice a gentle tingling or buzzing in the fingers, like a subtle vibration. And if you don't feel anything, that's okay too. But if you do feel it, that's just your nervous system responding to your attention. Your fingers preparing for movement. Your mind and your body coming together. And if your mind's already kicked in with thoughts, just coming back to the fingers, to the very tips. And then seeing if you can add your toes to your awareness now. So now your fingers and your toes are in your awareness. Just noticing what that feels like. And then allowing your awareness to travel up the ankles, noticing the shins and the calves, all the way up to the knees. And from there, traveling along the thighs, into the hips, noticing your legs and your awareness. Maybe there's a heaviness or a lightness. And then from the hands, allowing that awareness to travel up the wrists and the forearms, onto the crook of the arm. And from there, traveling up the tops of the arms and into the shoulders. Allowing it to travel across the chest, down into the belly. The whole body in your awareness now. Just noticing how that feels. And if the mind's thinking or being distracted, just coming back to that sense of the whole body and giving yourself permission to be right here. I'm exactly where I planned to be. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to do. This is it. This moment is all that's real. Perhaps noticing the jaw, the forehead, sense of just being, breaking contact with that busy doing. And then taking 3 bigger than usual breaths, just allowing the breath in through the nose and slowly out through the mouth. consciously slowing it down and taking it deeper. And then letting the breath find its natural rhythm again. And then when you're ready, keeping your eyes closed, just slowly returning movement to the fingers and the toes. Noticing what it feels like to move after that period of stillness. And then when you're ready, just gently blinking open the eyes. Just noticing that things reappear. Maybe noticing the feet on the ground, your hands in your lap. Maybe having a little stretch if you need one. So that was just a few minutes, and it can be just all we need to reset the nervous system and just release some of that stress that's built up.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Could you, so that was one where we were, paying a little bit of attention to our body. For people that perhaps aren't aware of some of the different options available, can you share just a few ways that people might, meditate, or the different ways of meditation that exist?
Sure. So there's kind of 3 umbrellas for meditation, and there's lots that come underneath that. So what we just did was a focused attention practice. And with a focused attention practice, the clue's in the title there, that we focus our attention on something, and whenever we get distracted, we come back. And there's all sorts of practices that come into there. So we might focus on the breath. And again, there's lots of different ways that you can use the breath. You could just notice, and maybe you've come across, people have come across, where you breathe in for 4, breathe out for 4, and you just notice. And again, you notice when you've been distracted and you come back. And it's that noticing, that's the moment of practice. That's what's building that muscle. So focused attention practice is a really big umbrella, and you could do that. You could do a focused attention practice as you're walking. You could do, you could actually create all sorts of things that would be that. And then the next umbrella would be an open awareness practice. Now, that for an open awareness practice, rather than focusing on one thing and then just noticing coming back, in an open awareness, you just allow anything to come up and you just label it what it is. So there's thinking, there's hearing, there's sensations, and you're just almost allowing a stream of things to come in and out. And then a final category would be, it's called self-transcending, and that's it's things like transcendental meditation and Vedic meditation. It's where you use and this is very broad umbrellas, there's like so many variations, but essentially it's about, with that you use a mantra, which is like a sound which the mind finds pleasurable, and you use that sound and it takes you into deeper states of consciousness. And so that's quite a different style again. And the reason it's called self-transcending is because you lose a sense of your body, and you really get lost out in that meditation process. In my experience, all the types of meditation allow you to get to that same place. It's almost, if you imagine the ocean and we're dropping into the deep ocean, there's just different ways of getting down to that deep ocean, that stillness, really. So essentially, there's, within all those categories, you could have, for example, guided visualizations where somebody's guiding you on a beautiful journey into some special place, or which again is just a focused attention practice, because you're focusing your attention on something, and when you get distracted you come back. And there's practices like loving kindness meditation, which is a way of you concentrate on a series of phrases that you offer to yourself and then outwards, and it allows you to develop self-compassion and compassion more generally. And then there's practices that draw on a little bit of open awareness. There's a practice called RAIN, which is a way of using that open awareness to nurture and offer compassion to yourself when you're experiencing difficult things. So with all of the different styles, there's almost like a surface level that you can, entry level, and then you can kind of get deeper. And that's one of the things I love about meditation, is that no matter how long you've done it for, there's always room, there's always more to learn and more to evolve and develop. So dip your toes in the water first, and then you can just gradually immerse yourself, as you feel comfortable.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I just took a quick look on my other device because I wasn't seeing any. I haven't seen any questions coming up right now. I don't know if people are a bit in Zen mode. But you know, as I say, if they do have any questions, then they can pop it in the comments, and we can. I keep saying we.
Yeah, I'll pop in. Yeah, I'll pop in.
I'll pop in and then direct it to Laura if it is what I'm trying to say. So Laura, if people want to find out more about well, your work, how they can meditate with you, I know that you have different ways that people can work with you, and you touched on a few of them earlier. I'm just going to say I will put the links to those in the comments so people can find them easily. But would you mind sharing how people can progress their meditation with you?
There's a couple of really quick, simple ways if you kind of go, you know what, I do want to dabble my toes a bit more. So the first is you can go to my website, which is bemodernmeditation.com, and you can sign up to my newsletter and you'll get a download of that 5-minute meditation. So you can literally listen to that as a way to do exactly what we've done, and just to have that, you know, I often, people will save it to their home screen, clients will save it to their home screen, you can do it. That's a really quick, simple way. And I also have a Facebook group called Be Meditation Community, it's called, if you look it up. And we can put the notes for that. And in that group, I regularly do, so on a Monday at 2:15, I do a live meditation that then people can listen back to, and we generally just talk a little bit, and then we do a quick brief meditation. And then I have a membership community that people can work one-to-one with me, or be part of that community, because community is a really helpful way of making meditation happen. You know, we talked about how it can be really solitary, and actually I've found that having community and having accountability when you want it can be a really helpful way to keep it alive. So it's not just something that you did once, it's something that's just part of how you live your life, and you can keep that journey going. So those would be kind of two places to start, would be my website and my Facebook group. And anyone is free to email me at laura@bemodernmeditation.com if they've got any questions as well.
Thank you. That's really generous. Thank you with the questions on the email as well. And yes, and I think what can sometimes happen with any of our habits is that once we get into it, we then sometimes take ourselves out of those communities. But actually, just being in that community reminds us, because we've all been in that place where suddenly a habit's drifted, and we're several months on, and we think, I don't even notice me stop doing that. But if we stay in that thing, just the being in that presence, it just reminds us and keeps it going as a permanent ongoing habit.
Yeah, and the science is really clear around meditation, that actually it's the regular practice that makes a difference. So, you know, I would much rather somebody was meditating for a couple of minutes a day on their, maybe at lunchtime or in the morning, than doing like a marathon meditation at the weekend, because actually they'll get, the benefit from that regularity. And so, yeah.
Absolutely. And one of my, currently I say currently only because I drifted away and I've drifted back into it. So I know that
we do, don't we? That's like we do with all habits, don't we?
Yeah. So mine is, I get up. I have some water, and I do say this, by the way, that's just because I don't like tea or coffee, so it's not that I'm really virtuous. So I have water, but I ignore my phone because I know I will just end up going down that rabbit hole of things. And I start with a 2-minute meditation, and it can be longer or it can be shorter, but my basic at the moment is I will do 2 minutes, and then I do meditation, affirmation, visualization, and a few other bits as well.
I love that you start with 2, because it's about, then it's an achievable thing, isn't it? And you go, I can do 2 minutes. I can always do 2, because I can scroll on my phone for 20, so I can do 2 minutes. And then often you feel like sitting for longer. Maybe you don't, maybe you do. But as you said at the beginning, you've done that one bit, and it makes it much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's not like I can't do longer. If somebody does it, it's not like you can't do it longer later. But if as I say, it's a slightly longer sequence of events, because I take it from the miracle mornings, the savers.
But
mine's slightly different, and I extend it. But it's slightly tweaked. But the thing is I know that I can always do that before I see my first client. You know, unless I've got a really super early start, really early, then I sometimes. But the point being that, you know, I can, if I've got a later start, I can do it longer, and I quite often then do something else later in the day as well. So it's not a or, but people have got to find what works for them, as we were saying at the start.
And I find things like, you know, I know we're not driving many places now, but I would get to places, you know, 5 or 10 minutes early, and I would do it in the car. So I'd literally just change in my head the time I knew I needed to leave, and just get somewhere early and park just a little bit further away, and just do meditation in the car. Or I'd get back from somewhere and I'd meditate in the car before I went in the house, because I knew once I went in the house, I'd go, well, I'll just do this and I'll just do that and I'll just do that, and then the time's gone. Like picking up the phone, you know, it's a, but yeah, it's experiment and see what works for you.
And this is it, you can fit, whether we call it meditation or mindfulness or being present, in so many parts of our, you know, parts of our lives. You know, for example, sitting at a red light, I often try and just sit, I don't close my eyes, but I just sit there and focus on my breathing at red lights, because you're there for a while. You know,
actually Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist, he talks about something like that. He says things like, do things like don't answer your phone on the first ring, and consciously use the 3 rings to be present, or when you boil the kettle, or when you walk through a doorway. It's like having these little cues for the micro moments, and so that it becomes habit.
Perfect. Yeah. And it's funny because I use the door, a certain door, when I go through periods of needing it, as I use the door for a stretch. Like that's the door where I stretch, you know, like stretch up or stretch.
So anytime you go through it, you go, there's, I've done a stretch. So of course you could do, you know.
So now you could, it is those cues, as you say, throughout the day. So there you go, an extra top tip from Ninja. Throughout your day. Laura, we are coming up to the hour. I'm just going to say, you know, again, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
It's been so interesting just to hear it all in a different perspective. I know because obviously we've known each other a little while, but you know, every time I hear it, something else resonates, something else connects. And yeah, so as I said to everybody, we will put all of the links. I will put all of the links into the. We're one now. We're one.
We're one. Yeah.
So we're going to say goodbye. So thank you once again, everybody.
Thank you.
And
thanks very much.
Thank you again. This.